Welcome to the AIOps Evolution Weekly broadcast, a series on the integration of artificial intelligence in the ever-evolving IT ops landscape. Discover how AIOps is transforming operations to create flow in organizations. And remember to join the AIOps Evolution community to stay connected and subscribe to the show at AIOpsevolution.com. Now, let's join our hosts, Sean McDermott and Bill Driscoll, IT thought leaders, visionaries, and the voices on the other end of the mic for the latest episode of AIOps Evolution Weekly.
Welcome, everybody, to the AIOps Evolution Weekly broadcast. My name is Sean McDermott. I'm your host, and my co-host, Bill Driscoll. Bill, how are you doing this Friday?
I'm doing great, Sean. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Are you ready for the weekend?
Yep, I think so. It's been a busy week, but that's all good. It's good problems to have.
Good, awesome. All right, so let's just jump right into it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to buy AIOps technology, what you should be looking for. We're going to talk a little bit about machine learning and getting proficient at machine learning, and then we'll just also spend a fair amount of time talking about AIOps teams and how to build successful teams. So we'll get right into it. So the first thing I wanted to bring up, this is an interesting article that I came across called AIOps Network Management Requires Vendor-Buyer Teamwork. So this is this article I think is really, really good. And the reason why I liked it a lot is because this, we spend a lot of time with our customers trying to help them figure out what platforms to buy and how to invest in technologies. And there is a tremendous amount of hype going on right now in AIOps. It seems like, like when I started one of my last companies back in early 2000s, and we were an automation platform, within a couple, 6 months, a year, everybody was touting they're an automation platform. And pre-pandemic, I went out to a conference and everybody out there was basically saying they're an AIOps vendor. So if you were walking around trying to get a lay of the land, you would be completely overwhelmed. And I think that's part of the problem, right? There's a lot of hype around AIOps. Everyone's kind of attaching its name. How do you cut through the noise and the marketing speak to really understand what these technologies can do, and how to find the right vendors and that will work with you on this, right? Because it's going to take time on the vendor side for them to help you get comfortable with their solution and how they're doing AI and what their AI models look like, or their machine learning models look like, and what their algorithms are and things like that. So I thought this was a good article trying to talk about how companies really should be looking at AI technology and really doing kind of two primary things. One is asking a lot of questions on the algorithms and the methodologies by which they do AI and machine learning primarily right now. Most of it's all machine learning, but what their methodologies, what their algorithms, how they're approaching it, right? And so you understand that. And the second thing is to start looking at how to maybe do proof of concepts, right? And bring in some of these technologies, run your data through it and see how it works and see how, and one, I think it gets you up to speed on AIOps in general, but it lets you see your data being processed by these platforms and see how it's going to come out, because all this stuff is contextual to your organization, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it was insightful to just call it and say a lot of companies, a lot of professionals are just looking at AIOps and AI as just hype, and Gartner, I think, is the one who talks about the hype cycle. And there's probably a trough of disillusionment here somewhere. Maybe we're entering it, maybe we're in the middle of it. But I think that that's, probably a good place to be. You are exactly where you need to be right now. And so, and I think it's pretty accurate. So I think that enterprises, professionals should be, skeptical, should be a little bit of, show it to me, prove to me, show me that this can make real world impact, and be somewhat distrustful because everybody's, buying into this hype. But I do think while there is definitely some hype and there's a lot of experimentation coming, going on, I think it would be unwise for a company to not participate in that experimentation. I think you should look at areas of your enterprise that's innovative, where you're investing in containers or some cloud or software-defined networking, and experiment and innovate there, and bring in some of these vendors in an experiment phase and see and test them out, right? Do the proof of concepts, do the pilots, be willing to lean forward and see where they play, because there is some real innovation happening out there, but there is more hype probably than the reality. I think that the other thing that's interesting is, and speaking of AI, Siri thought I was just talking to her, so she popped up. And the other thing you mentioned, it's about data and about algorithms. And I think in those POCs and pilots, I think the vendors are going to talk about collecting all kinds of general data, but are these vendors and the integrators you work with, are they going to help you sift through and make sure you're going after the right data? You're going after filtering it and using entropy or information science to get to that right data. And that's really going to differentiate the vendors that are just have capabilities versus the ones that's really going to work in your environment. So I agree with you. It was a very good article.
Yeah, I think the other thing is finding vendors that are really looking for a long-term relationship with you. And there's a lot of vendors out there that are trying to, I mean, I get it, right? They need to sell software, right? They need to bring in customers, and they need to build a sales engine. I mean, that's why the company's going to stick around in the end, is that they're actually selling stuff. But I think that there are some companies out there that get a little bit too hyper-focused on the sales cycle, don't give you enough time up front to really learn their technology, aren't putting in the work to help you be successful, help you evaluate what's going on. And I think the vendors that spend more time doing that, and it is more expensive and maybe will lead to longer sales cycles, but they're the ones that I think will build a longer term relationship with their customers. And if I were a customer, that's be a major factor. What I'm looking for is, who am I going to invest in for the next, 5 years? And it could be 10 years, right? Some of this technology sticks around forever. So who's got the roadmap? Who's got the technology development engines to actually continue to iterate and innovate, like you said? And who are the ones that are going to spend time with me now to help me get smarter to make a better decision? Those are the companies that I would personally be looking to partner with and prototype with.
Yep, that's good. That's a great segue when you said there's lots of great technology out there, but you want the partners that are going to work with you. You want the vendors, the technology companies that are going to work with you, because ultimately it is about the science, it is about the algorithms, but it's also about users and the operators using that. And I think that sort of leads us into the next article, which is about platforms that are really teaching non-experts to use machine learning is the title of the article. And I'll read the summary because I don't think I can say it any better, but really it's about new award-winning research from the University and S. Bowers College of Computing and Information Science are exploring how to help non-experts effectively, efficiently, and ethically use machine learning algorithms so that industries beyond computer scientists can really harness the power of AI. And really, in the way to do that, you got to get past the hype that machine learning and AI is for the ordained or for those mysterious data scientists that everybody's looking for. And so that's really, the focus, of this article is really looking at, how do we take these machine learning, these algorithms, and provide a UI, provide a sort of design experience so that people that really have domain expertise in networking, in compute, in cloud can apply them. And what they really describe that as transfer learning is really so that your end users, your operators, engineers understand their domain. And so the learning of what a machine learning algorithm is and the nuts and bolts of that is really something that the vendor needs to simplify and get to the language of the operators and the engineers, so that they can start applying it. And so taking that one field of knowledge and sort of applying it to the broader, the broader IT operations is really going to be critical. And I think we saw that with some of the vendors we worked with, where they provide, the right user interfaces to design the workflow, design the incident clustering algorithms using, something that makes sense to operators and engineers versus really needing to understand the math and the algorithms behind it. So that's going to be key. But your thoughts, Sean?
Yeah,
Sort of the overall challenge.
Yeah, I thought this was a really important article, actually, and a really important work that they're doing up at Cornell, because we've talked about this before. And in general, I mean, they're talking about kind of AI as a whole. So let's kind of narrow it down into AI operations, right? I think everything that they're doing conceptually stays intact if when you narrow it down. And the reason why I say this is really important work is because there's such a lack of skill sets in the IT industry in general, and even more so in the data science field. And we'll get into like team building in a little bit. So when you start thinking about all the people that need to be involved in order to have a successful AIOps strategy and AIOps implementation, there's a lot of skill sets out there that don't exist today. And there's going to be a lot of gaps, and it's going to be hard to fill those gaps. And I think if you're a medium-sized enterprise, and what I mean by that is probably $1 billion to 5 billion, which is a pretty sizable company, you're going to still be competing against the really large, the banks on Wall Street, the large telecommunications companies, the large retail and social media companies that are basically consuming so much of this talent coming out of universities and the research centers into their companies, that you're going to be kind of stuck there going, we want to implement AIOps, but we don't necessarily have the expertise to do it. So I think this work is really, really important to help organizations that don't have access to the talent, start home growing their talent, right? Because they make a really good point here, and that is, they believe that the skills in learning AI are easier than the domain experience of understanding the context of what the business does. So if you can take people who truly understand the business and the context of everything going on inside that business and learn AI, and they talked about even building AI academies where you can teach non-AI people these skills, that's going to solve a big problem I see coming down the road of just not enough talent out there. And the salary is going to skyrocket, and we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in cybersecurity right now. Every 1 out of every 2 cybersecurity positions are going unfilled because there's just not enough talent out there. So this work that you're doing at Cornell, I think, is really, really important, and something that we need to keep track of in what they're doing, and how it plays into vendors. And the vendors play a big role in this too, of bringing this AI technology to the enterprise, especially for people who don't understand AI and don't know how to do this type of work, but want to take advantage of it so they can buy it from a third party. So really, really good, really, really encouraging work going on up there at Cornell.
Yeah, and an example, one of the vendors we worked with, that started off their initial releases of the product, it was all, code writing, Java writing, and they really invested a lot of time in designing workflows and designing UI to really take the engineer through it. And that there's going to need to be a lot of investment in these vendors to do that, to make the experience a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think what that does, so this leads into our main topic, right, that we want to talk about, and that is what does it mean to have a successful AI team, right, and an AIOps team. And this work at Cornell, I think, is going to, anything you can do to help these people, like I said, staff understand AI and learn, who are really knowledgeable of the business. So when this work, or this understanding about what's going on in building an AI team, and a really successful AI team, the key here is that you're going to need a broad range of skills, right? So you're going to need, you're obviously going to need data scientists, right? We talk about that all the time, and data engineers, right? So you're going to need to understand, have people understand where the data is at, how to construct the data, what is the right data. You're going to have machine learning engineers who can actually build the models and the algorithms, and but you're also going to have to, they talk about needing translators, right? And these translators are translating business objectives into machine learning, right? And that's really key to a successful strategy, and in my mind could be one of the most important keys of a successful strategy is understanding how are we applying AI in our business, and how do we interpret what we're trying to do as a business objective, whether it's sell more things to consumers or provide more bandwidth and technology and bandwidth on demand or banking services. How do you do all that in the context of AI and these translators who are basically what I would consider AI business analysts, right?
Right.
Are going to be key to this.
Yep. Yeah, I think that the article as a whole was really an interview or providing quotes from AI team leaders from Capgemini and McKinsey and Urban Airship, and I think there was a couple others out there. The two things I took away that I thought were most relevant or insightful was McKinsey talks about organizational agile and lean sort of methodologies, and we've seen that with different customers, and we've promoted it and helped implement it at one customer was looking at what's the overall strategy and architecture, what are your objectives and who are the objective owners, and prioritizing that, and then how does that translate into stories and features and capabilities and sort of a whole agile method. And that Dan from Capgemini, or I'm sorry, Tameen from McKinsey talks about applying that to AI, and that you really need to treat this as an agile business that's bringing the AI and the machine learning and the capabilities, the algorithms, the data through those pipelines that really starts with your business objectives down to the stories, the capabilities and features to roll it out and really make an impact and measure that on the outside at the outcome, and provide that as a feedback loop. So that's one thing that you got to think about as an entire enterprise with cross-functional teams as to how you're driving that innovation and driving those results. And you mentioned the role of the translator. I think they refer to as the rise of the translator. And so that solution architect, that ML AI experts, they really have to be seen as the glue, or as the coaches and the mentors, that they understand these algorithms, they understand these capabilities, but they really have to kind of humbly go to the business and the product owners and the engineers that understand their business and say, and coach them as to how they can use the AI, how they can use the machine learning, versus trying to solve it all themselves and saying, just give us your data, we'll figure it out. It's really got to be that agile team exercise.
Yeah, I think so. This article that we're referring to, I don't think we actually even said it,
okay,
is from CIO Magazine, Maria Karoloff. What does a successful AI team really look like? So you can see it on the side over here, the border, if you want to read it yourself. But I think that you're right. And what was, there's a couple of things that, towards the end of the article that I thought were good too. One was looking at outside experience. The thing about this article, which, we're finding across the board, right? When you go out and start talking about AI, is that there's different pockets of AI and there's applications of AI. We're talking specifically around AIOps. These AI examples were more generalized across different things like how to engage customers and things like that. So I think that, those are interesting examples and may require customers to kind of roll their own, right? And do their own, using generic AI engines. Like my software company, we've done work with machine learning using Amazon's engine and writing the models ourselves. And, but when you get into the AI ops world, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see more companies adopting third-party solutions that are using AI ops and AI and machine learning in their platform. So, service desk applications that are embedding AI into that for ticket handling, ticket processing, escalation, chat bots, virtual assistants, things like that. Event management systems that are handling, ingesting massive amounts of data and doing root cause analysis, correlation, things like that. So I think we're going to see in the IT operations world, the applicability of AI ops. We're going to see more vendors utilization of vendors that are using AI. The other thing they talk about here is, and why that's important, is because they talk about using outside experience and outside consultants to do that. And I think that there's opportunities for IT organizations to use these vendors' technology as well as outside consultants. And also this idea that they talk about is building an internal AI team is expensive. Given the current marketplace for AI and ML talent, making this investment can help companies differentiate themselves in the market. The challenge I think that IT operations has is that when you start looking at AI in the context of direct revenue generating opportunities like customer engagement, customer reordering, prediction of what customers might want, even Netflix, right? When they're automatically curating what you're looking for, what you might want to watch based on AI. In the IT organization, we're seen more as a cost center, right? We're further away from the revenue. So it's going to be even more important for CIOs and IT leaders to look at their AI strategy and build an ROI that is compelling, knowing that some people may look at them like, oh, we're just throwing more money in the operations when we need to be throwing less. So using AIOps, and that's going to be kind of that hump. There's going to be work up front that needs to be done in order to realize the savings down the road.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll conclude my remarks with just two quick comments. One is, you talked about bringing in the outside. We're seeing some of the major vendors start to acquire, the IBMs and ServiceNows have made multiple acquisitions for AI and machine learning. And then one advice I got 15, 20 years ago was read widely and weirdly, which is bring in a lot of different points of view across a lot of weird disciplines, and AI very much applies here. That the enterprise has got to look across the business and find solutions and find ways to look at things and how to solve problems across not just AIOps, but across AIOps. And I think an investment in kind of that learning organization in AIOps is going to start to have some benefits in taking those learnings and applying it to your business in general. So,
yeah, I think the other lesson here that is start small, right? And look at a particular use case, and we've talked about this before, and we'll continue to talk about it. Find a use case that you can kind of get your arms around and start small, show the value before you try to go out and start pitching AI, AIOps as this, overarching, savior to operations. I think it's good to, we talk about this a lot, is building a strategy. And I say this all the time, AIOps is a strategy, it's not a solution. So it's a good idea to create a vision of where you want to go, but then implement in small steps along the way so that you can show value, you can build, you can get your team up to speed, you can get them learning as they're going, and then you can also work with, show people the value and start bringing people in and building that momentum and getting another use case and a bigger use case and start building from there. That's how we recommend most of our customers go about it. So any other parting thoughts on that?
No, I think I'll just agree with everything you just said.
Agree to agree.
Yeah, that's right.
So awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Again, my name is Sean McDermott and Bill Driscoll, and appreciate all the viewers. And I also wanted to mention our sponsor, Windward Consulting Group. You can find them at windward.com, the global leader in AIOps. And with that, we will sign off. And Bill, have a great weekend. I will see you next week with all kinds of new thoughts and comments and opinions.
Great. I'll be here.
See you, Sean. Take care. Bye, Bill.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation about AIOps and the future of IT operations. Interested in a deeper dive on these topics? Check out our resources available at AIOpsevolution.com. And remember to subscribe to get the latest episode.